We all have our stories about how we ended up in our respective fields. My story, not the one I tell colleagues and clients, but the real story, started in a strange but important place. I remember being frozen when he would touch me, cringing but unable to move. I couldn't run, couldn't get away, and I didn't want to anger him by fighting. So I did nothing at all, frozen. What I felt didn't matter. It was my place to be obedient to him. He had the power, not me. I was his pet. So I kind of had a hard time trusting other people. My walls were pretty thick. As a matter of fact, the only time I really felt safe enough to let down my guard was when I was alone with my dog. I didn't have to hide anything from her. She was honest and kind. I trusted her completely, and she trusted me. So it felt really crappy when I accidentally broke that trust. I was excited to do what I thought would be something really nice for her when I took her to her first day of doggy school, but I had done her no favor in taking her there. I watched in horror as the instructor paraded the dogs, one after the other, in front of the class, jerking and pushing them if they were slow to follow a command. And I watched my friend's eyes turn to fear when it was her turn to be obedient. And I saw myself in her. Like me, she was completely frozen. She wanted it to stop, wanted to run away or fight it, but she couldn't. He had the power, and I couldn't find the courage to help. But I vowed to her that day that we'd never go back there, that I'd stand up for her, speak up for her. I knew the hollow sting of powerlessness all too well, what it feels like to have no control over what's happening to you, and I made a commitment to her that it would never happen again. See, I felt I owed my dog a tremendous debt. She'd eased my suffering when nothing else could, kept me from going off the deep end more times than I could count. I owed it to her to ease her suffering in return when it was in my power to do so. But it didn't stop there for me. It couldn't. I'd seen those other dogs be treated that way too. Knowing that so many dogs were routinely suffering such injustices at the hands of us humans wasn't something I could just drop. The fact that we all seem to be culturally okay with treating dogs as if their feelings didn't matter in order to train them as our pets had disturbed me to my core. It struck an all too familiar chord in me. I hadn't been able to stop what had happened to me, but I could do something about this for them. So I studied applied ethology, became a professional family dog mediator, educator, and dog behavior consultant. I wanted to fix what was broken between people and dogs. And I'm sure that with every dog I helped, I was healing myself a little bit too. I ended up quite literally making a career out of trying to fulfill that original commitment. My professional journey simply became a natural extension of this promise I had made to my dog. But I'm not done yet. I'm still trying to make good on that promise. That's why I'm here to talk to all of you today. You see, the more I learned about dogs and people, about the problems they were having, sharing a life together in modern America, the more I discovered a surprising fact. The blatant, heavy-handed, and aggressive mistreatment of dogs I had witnessed in that dog training school was just the tip of the iceberg. The real problem was far deeper and more complicated. In treating dogs as pets, we'd all become complicit in creating a very serious and mounting situation, one that was taking a tremendous toll on millions of dogs and the people who love them. And for some reason, no one was talking about it. Let me give you a little scenario to start to paint the picture for you. Imagine you're walking down the street with your best friend. You see a strange man approaching. He suddenly becomes very animated and enthusiastic as he notices you. He moves quickly in your direction, like he knows you from somewhere. but you don't recognize him at all. He walks right up to you with his arms outstretched, wide-eyed and staring intensely. "Oh my goodness, beautiful," he exclaims. Without any hesitation whatsoever, the man reaches out to touch you and caresses your face emphatically. You step back, but he doesn't seem to notice your discomfort. He follows you, moving closer, and proceeds to run his hands over the top of your head, through your hair, and along your back, petting you. Ask yourself how you would feel in this situation, what you would do. Most of us shudder at the thought of being fondled by a complete stranger. Most of us would feel absolutely violated. It's a pretty yucky experience to feel so objectified and cornered. And yet most of us have been guilty of making dogs feel this way. We don't intend to. We think we're just being friendly when we pet a dog we meet. I know what you're thinking. Well, yeah, but dogs are different. Dogs like it. Good dogs do anyway, right? I mean, dogs are our pets, so it's different, isn't it? No, it's really not. Yes, there are plenty of dogs out there who think that every person walking down the street is their best friend and go out of their way to solicit and revel in any affections a hand has to offer, regardless of who it belongs to. But this isn't most dogs. Most dogs wouldn't feel any more comfortable in this kind of stranger scenario we were talking about a moment ago than you or I would. So, good intentions and all, we're actually being quite creepy when we get all instantly touchy-feely with a dog we meet without the dog's consent. But that's what we think we do with a pet. See, to us, all dogs are supposed to be passive love sponges. That's the definition of a dog. And some dogs really are like this. So we think all the other dogs should be like them. If they're not, we think they must be broken. We think they must have been abused, mistreated, or untrained. We're all so quick to label any clear resistance to physical contact with people, growling, barking, biting, as indicative of a bad dog, when perfectly good dogs are often simply being provoked and then judged as a result of our own inappropriate behavior. The truth is, most people aren't having dog behavior problems any more than they're having human behavior problems. We forget to mind our own manners. We do what makes us feel good, because that's what we think doggies are for. We forget our dogs have feelings too. But the science is in. We now know, if we ever doubted, that dogs do have intelligence and feelings, that they have rich emotional lives as we do. Animal emotion and intelligence has been repeatedly observed, researched, and documented in countless species since at least the 19th century, when Darwin himself published The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals. Yet not until more recently has the animal experience been more widely accepted and brought to light in the mainstream by such modern authorities as Temple Grandin, Mark Bekoff, and Carl Safina. Our dogs are clearly no exception to this science. They do think, and they do feel. Our dogs desperately need us to take a good look at what's happening to them, to stop for a little reality check. So here it is. We have been told a myth as pet dog consumers and clients that it was all how you raise them. That if we followed the blueprint for the perfect pet that the market pitched to us, with the right provisions and training and pedigree, that they would be our blank slate puppies upon which we could write whatever we wanted. It's a very nice fantasy, but it's not true. What is true is this. Dogs bite an estimated 4.5 million people a year in the US. And the ASPCA estimates that about 3.3 million dogs enter US shelters every year, with their owners citing behavior problems as the #1 reason they're giving their dogs away. What if this pet dog myth and the erroneous thinking and habits that go along with it goes way beyond how we make a given dog feel when we touch him? What if this pet idea is actually at the heart of so many of the larger cultural problems with dogs too? the growing numbers of unwanted homeless pets, the rampant puppy mills producing dogs in horrific conditions, the threat to family and community safety in the face of dog bites and attacks. Could it be true? It's hard to imagine. I mean, we love our dogs almost more than anything in this country. We have such good intentions. How could treating dogs as pets be responsible for so many of these larger issues? Why would we have gone along with something that would hurt them if we love them so much? Well, we have lost our canine common sense and accidentally fueled these larger issues for a few very legitimate reasons. Reason number one, because we are biologically primed to be stupid about dogs. When we see a cute puppy dog, we get a little hit of something called oxytocin. Oxytocin is what's often referred to as the love, cuddle, or feel-good hormone, making us all goo-goo gaga over stuff. It's released in the bodies of social animals like us humans during nursing, intimacy, and other bonding between social members. And it packs a powerful punch to the system, triggering a dopamine rush and activating the reward center of our brain. We can get a little stupid when we're high on this stuff. Oxytocin can take us over, make us act like complete idiots and forget important boundaries, behaving impulsively or inappropriately as we giggle, blush, and gush our affections all over the place. We can get so triggered with this kind of hormonal stupidity when we see a dog that we're inclined to act a fool and think nothing of it. I'm not saying I'm immune to it, by the way. I've just learned how to contain myself, at least until I get the green light from the dog that I'm good to pour it on thick. We're easy targets when we're under the influence of oxytocin if we're not careful. That brings us to reason number two. We're primed to buy whatever they're selling when we're in Doggylala Land, so we bought this whole pet dog pitch with a fever. We have been conditioned by a multi-billion-dollar pet product and services industry that encourages our oversimplistic delusion that dogs are just our little pets. That way we'll buy in and get them all those products and services they need that will make them good pet dogs. Then they should get in line with our expectations. That seems logical enough to us. They should be grateful for all these things, right? Aren't we their masters after all? Reason number three. Since we were told a long time ago that we had dominion over our dogs, it seems reasonable that they should be good little minions, especially if we're nice to them. They're dogs. We dominate them, and they're here to serve us. But they never got that memo. So even after all of our generosity as their masters, they still might not obey our every whim and measure up. And then we often give up, even if we are heartbroken about it. We give the dog away, thinking we must have gotten a lemon or damaged goods. One more dog in the unwanted pet pot. So then we're set up for another sale. And reason number four. There's even more money to be made on our pet fantasy delusions selling dogs as products themselves. When we do give up, we often go looking for another pet. We go dog shopping. We're total suckers all doped up looking at cute pictures of puppy dogs and descriptions of sweet dispositions that will fill the hole in our hearts with unconditional love. That's why we're keeping all those breeding operations and puppy mills in business. You see, many breeders aren't exactly helping when it comes to dispelling that fairy tale myth about the perfect pet dog they're selling us. Like any good salesman marketing a product, many breeders simply tell us what they think we want to hear. Nobody really tells us that many breeds of dogs are inherently predisposed to all kinds of behaviors we actually have little tolerance for in our pets. So the dog and we get set up for failure from the jump as we swim upstream against those genes or don't adequately provide for them. We reach the end of our rope when the pet gig we gave him isn't working out so well, when all those products and services haven't been able to turn him into something he is not. The dog snaps. Must be another lemon. And so it goes, on and on. The pet tail keeps wagging the dog. We have yet to step back and examine the bigger picture. If we really want to break this cycle, here's what we need to do. Dogs have 4 legs, and I think it makes sense to look at them that way, as a whole animal. I developed the dog legs model in order to give us a simple and practical framework in which we can see the complete picture of what's really going on with our dogs. Learning, the how you raise them part, is indeed critical, but the whole concept of training them needs to be redefined. The whole idea of obedience reinvented into a kind of reasonable contract of terms between 2 species having a relationship. We can and should do our best to explain to them how this whole modern pet dog thing is supposed to work in a way that makes sense to them. We do have one heck of a responsibility as their teachers. Learning is a really big deal, but it's just a quarter of the story. Context always matters too. Their environment, what is happening in a given moment and on a daily basis for our dogs as they encounter their world and everything in it, is an inescapable and constant, yet ever-changing factor in their lives. It's crazy to expect our dogs to be impervious to everything that happens around them and to them and just merrily roll with every punch. We can't ignore their genetics either. Dogs are biological animals. Genes matter, and we've got to know what our dog's DNA brings to the table. Traditional DNA testing or heritage software, like the dog key I developed, can help to fill in this genetic blank for us. Without this piece of the puzzle, it's really difficult to have a realistic starting point for our expectations about their behavior. We also know that each dog is 1 in a million. His distinctly unique individual self has a lot to say too. His age and development, sex and hormones, health and wellness, even random quirky likes and dislikes, all play a significant role in his overall experience, and therefore yours. Inside every dog is a world and a self that's his and his alone. Each dog is incredibly complex and dynamic, with all 4 of these legs working together in every moment. So much more than just a pet. There's a whole dog there wagging that tail. I know what it feels like to be minimized, objectified, and treated as something less than I am, as I'm sure many of you unfortunately do too. We don't want to accidentally do this to our dogs. So please, keep loving your dogs as deeply as you do. Spoil them rotten. Delight in their antics. Share affections and bonds with them that put many human relationships to shame. And help me to fulfill the promise I made to my dog by standing up for them with me and raising the level of conversation about dogs beyond one about pets. Hold the pet industry and its professionals to a higher standard and raise the bar in your own relationships with your dogs. As for me, my story just keeps getting better and better every time one of theirs has a happy ending. Each wrong that's righted, some just redemption for those who can't speak for themselves. Thank you.